The 80-year-old woman came to the casino for the first time in her life. Although she didn't know the rules, she still put all her savings on it. Unexpectedly, in the next second, the small ball really stopped at the position of number 8. 5 pieces instantly became 1,000, and then the woman doubled the bet again. Unexpectedly, the small ball stopped at number 8 again. The people around were surprised and applauded. In just a few minutes, 5 pieces became 3,000. After a long second of thinking, the woman directly collected all the chips. The uncle next to her advised her not to get involved, but the woman ignored him. Seeing that the chips were dropped into the competition, the people were surprised and opened their mouths. At this time, the wheel started to turn and everyone's hearts were raised to their throats. As expected, the small ball stopped at number 8 again. Seeing that the chips became 60,000, the people around applauded the woman again. However, this is just the beginning. Then all the projects in the casino were played by her. Even if you haven't played, you don't know the rules, and you don't even need to look at the bottom card. Just wait for the chips to double. This exaggerated operation directly made the gambling gods on the side doubt their lives. Do you think the woman is a master of thousands of tricks? But in fact, she is not. The reason why the woman is so lucky is that she spent 10 yuan a day ago. The god who found it gave himself a blow. The god told her that the 28th would be the day when her luck would explode for the rest of her life. As the god said, the woman killed 4 people in the casino, but she didn't expect this to be the last round. She lost all her chips. Then she left the casino in a daze and found the god again. The god told her that it wasn't over yet. There's more good luck waiting for you. On the way home by bus at night, the uncle next to her kept leaning on her. When she looked at the uncle's nose, she found that the uncle had already gone to the northwest. At this time, the uncle's bag just fell into her arms. When she opened it, the woman opened her eyes in an instant. At the same time, she also found a dragon tattoo on the uncle's neck, but after a moment of thinking, Sophie thought it was God's good luck for her. She decided to take the bag home. After a round of counting, there were a total of $5 million on the table. With this huge sum, Sophie began to spend crazily on the street. But as soon as she got home, she found 2 strangers in the house. The 2 were from the Blue Dragon gang. They asked Sophie if she had taken anything. Sophie denied it and warned the other party to leave quickly. Otherwise, let the police catch the 2 of them. In this way, the 2 people were successfully scared away. At this time, Sophie realized that the money had been exposed. In order to avoid this kind of thing again, she came directly to the top security company. She hired a bodyguard with $50,000. This huge sum of money made Sophie rest assured. Unexpectedly, Sophie was doing her hair at the barbershop that day. The people from the Blue Dragon gang suddenly came over. The 2 threatened her to quickly hand over the uncle's backpack. When the 2 forced to ask about the whereabouts of the backpack, the bodyguard who went out to buy tea just came back. After 3 or 2 punches, the 2 people were dealt with. When Sophie came home at night, the more she thought about it, the more strange it was. So she found a friend who knew the underworld. Under pressure, she learned that the uncle who died on the bus that day was an accountant of the White Tiger gang. But behind the scenes, he had nothing to do with the Blue Dragon gang. That day, he was ready to run away with $5 million. He didn't expect to have a heart attack and die in the car. Now both gangs are looking for this money, especially Fiona of the White Tiger gang. Although this little money is nothing to her, it made her lose face. Unexpectedly, the Blue Dragon gang came to the door again at night. First, they knocked Sophie out with a punch. Then they kicked her door open and stormed into the house. Hearing the noise, Sophie walked out with a pan. She used the pan to knock one out. Then she poured boiling water on the other. But how could she be the opponent of a young man? Fortunately, David came back in time. With a big punch, he knocked the gangster down. David was shocked for a moment. He wanted to ask if there was any defense. Unexpectedly, Sophie took out a bag. They put the body in it together and threw it directly into the trash can. But after dawn, Sophie came to the trash can to check. She found that the body inside was gone. Obviously, their behavior was watched by others. This made both of them extremely nervous. Sophie came to the sauna to relax. Suddenly, she found a mysterious woman sitting next to her, and she did exactly what Sophie did. She urged her to return something that didn't belong to her. Sophie guessed that the woman seemed to be Fiona of the White Tiger gang, but she still kept her mouth shut and said she didn't understand. The woman didn't admit anything and sent someone to escort Sophie home. But as soon as Sophie left the sauna, she met people from the Blue Dragon gang. A fierce gunfight broke out between the 2 sides. In the end, Sophie was the only one who survived, but she was shot in the abdomen. Although she returned home safely, she found that the house had been turned upside down. She also found a note left by the Blue Dragon gang. They took Sophie's grandson. If you want to save your grandson, bring $5 million to them. At this time, David rushed back. When he saw the money on the ground, he understood everything. He told Sophie that even if he gave the money to the Blue Dragon gang, he wouldn't get her grandson back. After that, he took the money from Sophie. Without money, Sophie could only load a bag of waste paper and take it to the Blue Dragon gang. When they opened the bag and found it was waste paper, they were furious. Sophie begged them, saying she could work and repay the money. The gangsters mocked her. But at this time, the boss of the Blue Dragon gang was suddenly shot. It turned out to be people from the White Tiger gang. The 2 sides exchanged fire. At this time, Fiona also appeared. It turned out that David returned the money to her and asked Fiona to save Sophie and her grandson. Soon, the people of the Blue Dragon gang were defeated. Sophie and her grandson were also saved by David. After experiencing all this, Sophie understood that things that are not her own do not belong to her after all, and she swore to live honestly in the future.